Hey guys, welcome to this week's edition of Shop Talk. I'm just chilling here in the office, working really hard, as you can see. Why don't we take a step back into the warehouse, see what we got. Oh hey, say hello to Jacob. He is actually here working. I can't believe he's actually doing something today. Sam's back from, where'd he go? Sam's back from a cruise. Check that out. Hey Sam.
Hey, how you doing?
He went on a cruise. Lucky dog. It's like we're not working these guys around here hard enough or something. No, but check this out. They got a whole bunch of packages packaged up for today, and they got a whole bunch more to do. So today is all about belts. Let's see what kind of trouble we can get into around here. Let's see. Check this out. These are pretty cool. I picked up here a Viking Tactics Cobra Belt. Pretty cool belt. So today I thought we'd do a little shop talk all about the belts. And we got a lot here to choose from and a lot to talk about. So strap on those seat belts, hang on tight. Here we go. All right, so I'm gonna set you all over here. Hey, Matt and Dean, what's up, folks? Jacob's even watching. Shayna, hello, Shayna. Tristram, RGB belt all the way. Well, we got a bunch of other options here today too. I think you're gonna like this. All right, so let me get this all adjusted where I need it. My kids would be upset if I got more belts. I can't help you there, buddy. Okay, so you see I've got a whole bunch of belts laid out here. So we're gonna talk about belts. If you have any questions about belts, make sure to ask them. I'll do my best to watch the comments rolling in. If I miss anything, Jacob can chime in from the other room there. But, so what's the purpose of a belt? Especially if we are a freedom-loving, gun-carrying American, right? Now, obviously you know what the purpose is. Hold your pants up and hold your stuff to your pants. But when we start carrying a gun, it gets a little bit more, hey Skylar, it gets a little bit more, there's a lot more that we have to think about than we normally do when we're not carrying a gun. Hey, could you kill that, Sam? Sorry, the heater just kicked on. Any belts without metal? Yes, I do have some airport-friendly belts. We'll talk about those as well. So, just turn it, turn the temperature way down. Look at these goons over here. Can't figure out a thermostat. Freedom-loving, gun-carrying American. Yes, you got it, Nate. AC is on here. Yeah, it's not quite AC-worthy weather here, or temperatures. So, with belts and carrying a gun, it's got to not only keep your pants on, not only just hold a holster to your waist or inside your waist, but belts have a lot to do with making concealed carry comfortable and also consistent. You're adding typically, depending on the gun you carry, 1 to 2 pounds to your belt that normally isn't there. And so you not only need your belt to hold things up as far as vertically, but one of the issues we sometimes run into is things that try to peel away from the waistline. So let's see, I think I got a holster here. I'm gonna use it as an example. This is a holster from 1791 gun leather. And if I just use it as sort of an example, so it's not only about holding things up vertically like this. Sometimes when we add the weight of a gun to our belt lines, and many of you have experience with this, we see things wanting to do this. And that includes even inside the waistband. If you have too much weight on the top side of the gun, sometimes, and especially if it's being carried in appendix position or even IWB 4 o'clock, sometimes that gun might have a tendency to want to lean out like this. All right, so the reason it's able to do that is because the belt has too much flex, or it's maybe not tightened up tight enough, or both. Okay, so that's one of the things we're getting into here today. Kim, I'm sorry you're only hearing about every 10 words. Hopefully the audio is good for everybody else. Guys, give me a thumbs up if the audio is okay for you. Maybe it's just Kim, maybe it's just your connection, I'm sorry. So I'm going to start though first by talking about the classic duty belt. I say classic, this one's obviously, it's made from nylon. In the old days, a lot of law enforcement would wear the old, what was it, sand brown belts or whatever, big, wide, pretty thick leather belts. This is an old duty belt. I say old, it is pretty old. It's getting close to be about 10 years old. I've worn this many times on duty. You see my spare mag holders. I got a radio case. I got a key carrier. I've got OC spray, baton, gun holster, cuffs, couple of sets of cuffs. So a duty belt is really wide. This one is 2 or 2¼ inches wide. So that's quite a bit different than this one I was holding up a moment ago. This is actually what we call the, hold on, this is not the casual, this is the, crap, Jacob. I forgot the name of this belt. Which was that?
That's the dress or the casual?
The dress belt, sorry. I have so many belts here, keeping them all straight, it's a bit tricky. Okay, so this is the dress belt that we actually sell on our site. They're marked down considerably right now because they're discontinued. We're trying to get rid of them. So, you coming over to crash the party or what?
Well, I'm just going to sit down here so I can answer the next question you asked me. Run in here.
I think that's the only one I don't remember. Anyway, so this is the dress belt. And this one's very narrow. This is like 1¼ inch. All right, compare that to this duty belt, right? So the first factor that we'll talk about when it comes to belts is width. Typically, a wider belt is going to be more secure and more rigid than a very narrow or skinny belt. Makes sense, right? So that's why most cops that you see, they're wearing duty belts that are 2.25 inches wide, because police officers don't want, they don't want their gear flopping around. They're chasing people down. They're getting into wrestling matches sometimes, trying to put cuffs on an unruly suspect. So they need their gear to stay put and to be in place the same way every time. That consistency is key. So this belt is nylon, but it's reinforced with either a hard plastic or a metal inside that keeps this material very rigid. And when this is applied to the waist or worn on the waist, it's going to be very, very, very secure. Something else to just touch on real quick with duty belts, and I have some competition belts over here too. Usually you wear an inner belt with Velcro. That's a common solution these days. So this inner belt is also pretty rigid. It's got some reinforcing to it. So you would, as a police officer or as a competitive shooter, you'd throw on this inner belt. That's actually going to do the job of keeping your pants up and in place. And then the outer belt is going to attach to that via Velcro. And then most law enforcement agencies also either require or suggest their officers use what they call belt keepers, that they loop around the inner belt and the outer belt, which just adds even more security to that belt. So anyway, really wide, stiff, duty belt, all this gear. I mean, this thing, how much does this weigh, do you think, Jacob? It doesn't even have my mags and everything on it. It's pretty heavy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably an easy 6-7 pounds. No,
it's pretty hefty. We got a scale. He's going to go stick it on the scale. So keep in mind, that belt does not have my radio, does not have 3 spare mags as it normally does not have my gun in it. Let's see what that thing weighs. Oh, he took the baton out. Cheater.
So it's about 6.5, 7 pounds.
Okay, not having spare mags, no gun, it's about 7 pounds, just this one duty belt, right? So that explains very clearly why you want a good sturdy belt when you're adding those pounds in gear. Hank's belt, yeah, they're pretty good. Love duty holsters, yeah, and that's a Blackhawk weapon mounted light one. It's pretty good holster. I'm going to talk real quick about competition belts. Let me start with this one. This is a belt that I use in 3-gun. So is this. They're both 3-gun belts, but this is actually one I have set up now for my son, who's been competing a little bit with me. So same thing in 3-gun or competition. You're carrying 3, 4, 5 spare mags. In 3-gun, you're carrying a couple pistol mags, a couple of AR mags, and a bunch of shotgun shells, plus your gun and your holster. So this belt is made by Safariland, and it works with their SLS system. And so what that is that you use these clips, like that one there, and they screw to the holes in the belt. Super, super secure. It also allows you to very quickly pull things off, switch things around. It's a very, very modular system. So that's a Safariland gun belt. I used that for quite a while in competition and highly recommend. Nice and stiff. This is about 1.5 inches wide. So yeah, a little bit wider than the standard belt. but gets the job done. And then last year I moved over to this belt, which is actually provided by one of my 3-gun sponsors, Carbon Arms. And you can check this. This is actually a plastic belt. Can you believe that? The belt itself is plastic. Has this ratcheting attachment here, so I can really cinch it down tight on my waist. This plastic is obviously really rigid. So works really well in the competition environment. So Carbon Arms, if that's something, if you're getting into competition. All right, so once again, and you see how rigid this thing is. I'm holding it on the one side, and it's supporting everything else on the other side, no problem, right? So the importance of a good rigid belt, it cannot be overstated. But it's not just about rigidity, as far as like you saw how those ones held the weight vertically very well, but also has something to do with like how much it's willing to twist or able to twist. Okay, so those belts don't really twist that easily. That's really good for stability.
So people would like some female recommendations and also
Sure.
talk about pants.
Talking about women, so like a lot of times your pants don't even have belt loops, so you don't even have an option for wearing a belt a lot of times. So obviously that's going to be a clothing choice on your part. You either need to, if it's important to you to wear a belt to carry a gun inside your waistband or something like that, then you should probably choose pants that have belt loops so you can wear a belt. But I would say the same things are true for women as they are for men. Kim says that she'd like to carry more on her hip, but it pulls her pants down. And so again, I can't state enough how important it is to have a belt that's both stiff and also rigid. And I think that's what I was trying to explain a moment ago. Is there's both a stiff kind of aspect as well as the rigid aspect. And I'm going to use that to describe the difference between how well the belt resists torquing up and down as well as side to side, because those two factors together are going to have a lot to do with how much a belt allows that holster to move this way or this way. Okay? All right, so that's the inner belt I showed you earlier. So let's look at some more common belts like for everyday use. Sean, any suggestions for what brand of pants to wear? Dude, I am wearing 511 Defender Flex pants, so is Jacob. We really like these pants a lot. They're jeans, basically. They have a little bit of stretch to them, so they're really comfortable to wear. They have a lot of pockets. Guys like pockets, right? 511 has some great products, too, for women as well. So, anyway, you might check out 511. And, yeah. Oh, someone already answered that. I got to scroll down, apparently.
I'm monitoring all these comments.
Yeah. Okay, so I was going to highlight a couple of things real quick. Get these kind of out of the way. So, someone asked about airport belts. This is an example of one that we sell. It's been discontinued. You can go check out our site. It's called the Airport Belt at concealedcarry.com, and it's got some rigidity to it. They're nice thick leather. They're somewhat reinforced, but it's a very narrow belt, which is probably one of the things I'm not very crazy about with this particular belt. But it doesn't have any metal in it. Doesn't have any clasps, any latches, buttons, buckles, anything. So this is a very airport-friendly belt. You shouldn't have to remove this going to the airport. When I travel, I like to use an airport-friendly belt for sure because it saves a little bit of hassle there. So this, like I said, is the airport belt available for sale on our site. We've marked this thing down because we have the airport belt, the dress belt. There's one more over here that's called the casual belt, and these are all discontinued, and we're trying to get rid of them. So we've marked them down considerably. You might want to go check those out. And in a little bit, I'm going to give you all a coupon code that you can use on any of the belt products on our site. It'll save you even more money, including on these discounted items. All right, so airport belt, no metal, a little bit narrow, this particular one. We'll set that aside.
A lot of these leather ones would be fine through the airport, even with those buckles.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. So this is the dress belt, talked about already. Obviously, the big difference is just got a buckle, right? But it's the same style of belt, very similar construction, somewhat stiff, but also very narrow. What I like to use a lot of times when I travel is, this is a 511, I can't remember what they call this one. Oh, there it is, double duty. This is the 511 double duty belt. And then why it's called double duty is it's coyote colored on one side, black on the other. So kind of go with whatever pants or dress you're going with. If I'm wearing these blue jeans, I'll go with the black. If I switched over to some cargo pants or something, I'll flip the belt around. So it's really convenient. But the buckle is plastic. And these things are super affordable. They're like 20, 25 bucks maybe, 511 Tactical. You can get one at a 511 Tactical store or online. They are not the most rigid belt as far as, like, they don't really have any reinforcement inside of them. Now, this is the 1.5" version. They also make the double duty in a 1.75". This thing is really, really, really nice. This is one of my favorite belts because with the weave in the nylon that they've done, it does give pretty good up and down rigidity. Twisting, not so much, but I found this to be sufficient for most holsters and most guns that I carry. So there's just enough stiffness to this that it works for me. It may not work for you, your mileage may vary, but these are, again, plastic buckle, no metal in the belt. So this is my go-to when I'm flying, and worked really well in that regard. So you'll note though that this is a lot different than something like this. Actually, it may not look so much different on the camera, but I can really feel the difference between that 511 belt and this one from Viking Tactics. This is the Viking Tactics Cobra Belt. Uses the Cobra buckle. That's a pretty popular option for some folks. Works really, really well. I'm actually wearing one today. And but this has some reinforcement in it, unlike the 511 one. So these are even more rigid. This is probably what a lot of folks think of sometimes when they're looking at true gun belts to carry, or a nice, thick, wide leather one. Okay, but what I will say, if you're an appendix carrier, what I've learned through the years is that when you carry appendix, you don't necessarily always want the most stiff belt. So some of your more traditional gun belts that are quite stiff and quite reinforced don't always work as well for appendix carry, but are probably a little bit more important for IWB. So anyway, these work really well, these 511 nylon belts for appendix carry. Obviously a stiffer belt works fine in most contexts, but I find that sometimes I get a little bit more increased comfort in the appendix position when I'm wearing a belt that's not super rigid like some of these really thick, fat belts are. And I'll get into what some of these are. I'll show you. I've got here this Cobra Belt. Give you a close up. Again, that's the buckle. This is how it works. Oops. Facebook's telling me to rotate my phone. I was only turning it a little bit. So that's the buckle piece. And so you can latch it or set this up, and all you gotta do to undo it is unclip it. That's pretty cool, right? So you can kind of have it set to one size. And you'll see, guys, I'm carrying Glock 17 today. Okay, so with the right belt, with the right application, I can carry a pretty good sized gun. It's gonna stay secure, it's not gonna move around on me, and it'll generally be pretty concealable. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna take a quick look.
People want to know about dress belts. A couple people say that they've just always used a normal belt, never seen any need for any sort of gun belt.
Yep. So I will say, let's talk about a normal belt versus a gun belt, a gun purpose belt. Normal belts, especially if you're carrying OWB or IWB, generally do not perform nearly as well as a gun that's purposed for, or a belt that's purposed for guns. So just trust me on this. Until you try a gun belt, if you feel like, oh, I've been just using my regular standard leather belt for all these years and it's worked fine with my particular gun and holster setup, well, that may be true. Don't fix anything that's not broken. But if you ever try a gun belt, you'll see a big difference in how secure and how consistently located that gun and holster is. Okay, and that's something else I want to touch on. It's not only about keeping the gun in, like from going up and down, from falling, pulling your pants down or anything like that. It's also about the gun staying put, okay, being consistently located. I don't want to go to reach my gun and realize that because my belt has moved a little bit and has allowed the gun and the holster to move a little bit, that now my gun and holster is in a different position.
It's also about retention.
Yes, retention is important too. So I wore a normal belt for a number of years carrying guns, and in fact it was just a leather belt, but it didn't have any sort of reinforcement, and it worked fine. But one day I read an article someplace and I thought, oh, well, I should try an actual gun belt. And I picked one up, And I went to that, and I haven't looked back since, okay? Because it's made a world of difference as far as how well I can carry that gun. I don't ever feel like my gun moves around on me. I don't feel like it's pulling my pants down. See, when you have a belt that's not very rigid, I'm trying to think, well, this is probably the best example because this is an 1.5" nylon. What happens sometimes, especially carrying outside the waistband and sometimes inside waistband like 4 o'clock, is this belt allows the weight to kind of pull down and bend. And that will start to pull your pants with it as well. But when you've got a belt that is a lot more rigid and it doesn't allow the weight of the gun to pull that area down, so in other words, all of the belt kind of stays more or less in place because you got the load being carried over multiple belt loops in multiple places on your waist as opposed to just one specific spot. Like that's where you'll see the real difference. And you'll start, those of you that have said sometimes, you know, I struggle carrying a gun, I struggle carrying OWB or IWB or on the hip period because it pulls my pants down. Well, it's usually a combination of a poor belt or not tight enough sometimes. That can be an issue too, right? So sometimes people wear a belt just for looks, but you got to have things reasonably tight when you're carrying a gun, right? That makes sense.
There's also a factor of...
Jacob wants to talk. I guess I'll...
There's also a factor of just the economics, right? You're going to pay a little bit more for a gun belt, and so a lot of people are hesitant to do that. But if you don't, you're going to eat regular belts, right? Like your gun is going to just chew through them. Like I remember when I used crappy belts, and I didn't know why I needed to use a gun belt, but I was going through belts so fast because they were constantly starting to wear out and tear where the holster was, and they would just fall apart really fast. And so at some point, if you can economically justify spending more for a good gun belt, you'll find it's going to last a long time because they're higher quality belts and they're designed to work in that environment.
Tristan nails it on the head here as far as he says, before having a gun belt, it seemed like I was always having to adjust. And that has been my experience every time as well.
A couple of brands here people are asking you about, Riley. People want to know if you've ever tried out the SOE belts, the Core.
They make good stuff. I've not tried it personally, but just knowing people that have used them, I know they're good belts.
The Core Essential with a K?
Core is very similar, and I think there's maybe even some sort of relationship between Core and Next Belt. This is basically the Core belt design. So it's this buckle with ratcheting teeth inside the other end of the belt. And as you put that through, it ratchets in place, adjusts like every 1/4 inch. And I'm going to talk about adjustability here in a minute because that's a really important factor too when it comes to belts, I think. So yeah, this is very similar to Core belt. Yeah, this is a little bit more dressier version, obviously. You can see, I mean, this is what I actually wear on Sundays. I go to church, and this is my go-to belt on Sundays. It looks great, looks very dressy. I've got my gun on me, and you know, people don't know, but you know, it's a good belt. It's not super rigid, but it's not bad. It's got some reinforcement to it. So good question about the Core belts.
Someone asked about click belts, which are very comparable to like the Cobra from Vtac.
Yeah. This Cobra belt from Vtac is a serious. You see, this is a XXL. Got the tag on there. This is a very, very beefy belt. I think this is an 1 3/4" belt right here. Some of those click belts I've seen are like an 1.5" version. They're generally gonna work just fine as well. And of course they get their name because of the click of the way the buckle actually clicks in place. So I talked about that a little bit earlier as well. So I did want to address, Gregory says, after time it starts to roll as well as sag. Cheap, you know, I say cheap leather belts because they're not necessarily because it's always cheap, but belts that are like one layer of leather that aren't reinforced, it's true, over time they will start to sort of roll. When you have all that weight on the belt itself for day after day after day, it will start to break that leather down and roll. And that's where you start to really have some issues with the gun and the holster on the belt.
Punched belts are hard to get proper tension, says Jared.
Yeah, so, and Chet, you're very kind. Looks like I've lost some weight. I don't know that I've really lost much weight, brother. I do drink less root beers now. I'm drinking a crap load of water, and it's good. It's healthy, right? But the weight is not really coming down just yet. Appreciate it, though. You're very kind. So let's talk about adjustability. Since there's some comments there and questions, I'm going to bring this over here so I can show you a couple of belts. So a lot, in fact, I'll bring this up like so. So we see, I've got several belts here that are the traditional buckle and leather belt model, right? So very, very common. This is what people think of when they think of a belt. these all look like normal belts, but each one of these is reinforced in some way. So they work very well as good stiff gun belts. I'll tell you what these are. This is our concealedcarry.com casual belt. Again, discontinued, marked down. Go check them out. Really, really affordable price now on those. This is a CrossBreed holsters belt. Nice belt there. This is the new Brave Response belt. Do they have a special name for it?
Standard or reinforced?
This is the reinforced model. So we turn it around, we see it's a size 36R, so it's reinforced. Okay. And then we have a Urban Carry leather belt here. And all of these are really comparable. They're nice belts. They're thick, especially this casual belt that we sell. Really, like double layer leather in some cases. Very, very nice, sturdy belts. But they all suffer from the same problem. Not that they're bad belts, but they don't have very many holes. Or they do have, they have holes. But what I mean by that is that they are limited in their adjustability. Typically a leather traditional belt with a buckle is adjustable about one spot every inch. So you're either a 34 or a 35 or a 36, or it's basically 1 inch increments in the adjustability. Now, if you find a good setup as far as holster and gun and pants, and your weight doesn't change, and you wear the same gun and holster and pants every day, and your weight's consistent, and you happen to find one hole that works the same place, the same way every time, then you're good to go, right? As far as having that limited adjustability, it's not a problem.
Well, there's certain like dress factor, so some people are looking for a certain kind of look or style, and the leather belt often is more likely to blend in perhaps, or look like what you might already be wearing.
Yep.
A good comment here from Sean real quick. Sean says, some gun belts turned out to be just a leather belt rebranded. Check the reviews. So, how would someone know, Riley, that it's a gun belt versus just a leather belt that someone claims is a gun belt?
Generally, when I think of a gun belt, it's been reinforced. So let me use this Brave Response holster or Brave Response belt. Okay, same guys that make the Brave Response holster. They've started making these really nice leather belts. They're really very, very nice, handmade right here in the USA, of course. This is labeled as 36R. That R means it's reinforced. You can see a slight imprint in the leather itself. Yes, you can put that kind of imprint in just by rolling the belt through a press. But that's actually material that's been inserted. Do you remember if this is steel or plastic?
No, it's a nylon polymer.
Okay, nylon polymer. Okay,
whatever that is.
So some sort of insert that's inside the leather. So there's 2 layers of leather sewn together, and inside that is this reinforced core. And what you'll see is it actually, the belt itself will not really bend very easily, okay? It will twist a little, but it's quite rigid, okay? But as far as like the up and down, like it's a very sturdy belt. So anything that has reinforcement added into the belt, in the inner portion of the belt, that's typically done because it's intended for carrying a gun and a holster.
Or just thicker. Sometimes it's just like this one here, which is probably one of the more rigid leather ones here. It's just like 3 layers of leather.
Right.
It's
yeah, that's
super
true.
rigid.
So these casual belts we sell, these are not actually reinforced in the way that there's not something inside the belt reinforcing it, but the way that the belt has been made with 3 layers of serious leather. Again, it's pretty good. This is not quite as rigid up and down as the Brave Response belt I just had, but it does a pretty good job because it's really thick. Okay, so this one has been designed. You'd see that this is very much a lot thicker than any leather belt that you just buy in the store that's intended for dress wear. Okay, so that 3 layers makes a big difference in stability.
Here's a good comment from High Caliber. He says, you can really tell a difference in belts when you drop your pants to use the bathroom. Just saying.
I know a good stiff belt is a good gun belt when you drop the pants and the belt's still in the pants and the pants like stay open.
and the gun doesn't go whoop.
Yeah. So right you got a good gun belt when you undo everything and you drop it and it looks like it's still around your waist. It's just on the floor, right?
So good comments here. Tucker and Bird make some of the best belts. Someone says several people say they have Bigfoot belts. They like those as well. Someone wants to know
Bigfoot,
how much does a gun belt cost?
Yeah, so, you know, let's go through these a little bit. So a good quality leather belt, you're going to see anywhere from $55 up to $100. Okay, so that's the price range of virtually all these leather belts you see on the table here, from about $55-$60 up to $100. Okay, so just depending on, you know, where they're made, how they're made, and yeah, so there's some nice belts there. Some of these other ones here, the Vtac Cobra Belt is 69. I think they're 69-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. The next belt, I honestly don't remember. I've had it for so long. I want to say probably about $50 or $60. This is a belt from Wilderness Tactical, and we really like our friends over at Wilderness Tactical. It's a reinforced, you know, stiff belt. This one is airport friendly. It's got these plastic loops. And in case you don't know how this works, I'll show you really quick. This is really simple. So you actually would thread this through the two rings there. Oops. So you thread that through, and then you double the belt back through, and you go through that second ring there. You see that? So above or behind this initial ring and through the second one. And then as that is cinched up on the waist, it's going to stay put, right? So and then it's got some Velcro that keeps this other end from wandering away. So anyway, this is a belt from Wilderness Tactical. Really, really, really nice belt. What's the price on these?
I think depending on the style and the
60-ish?
buckle, anywhere from like 40 up to about 70, 80.
Okay, so kind of in that same range. Then we've got I told you the Vtac ones, next belt. I told you already these 511 double duty belts, very, very affordable. They'll get the job done. 20, 25 bucks, I think, maybe 30 tops. Let's see. Oh, I got another one here I haven't really talked about yet. So Graith, is it Graith Tactical or just Graith?
I think it's just Graith.
So there's a company called Graith.
GraithUSA.com.
And they make this belt. It's called a specialist belt. They sent me one of these for review. Jacob's got one as well. It's a very nice thin nylon belt with some reinforcing in there. Very simple buckle. They're just a very, very, very simple belt. To put one of these on, you loop it through that first little ring or slot, and then you double it back through the second one, and it holds very securely. Some Velcro here to hold the other end. I've actually been wearing this for about the last month or two, maybe 6 weeks. Been very pleased with this very simple, streamlined specialist belt from Graith, and these are also, I think, in the kind of that $50, $60 price range.
They're 50 something, $42.50.
Oh, $42.50.
If that's the smallest size, right?
Okay.
You pay more for a bigger size.
Yeah. And then this is one also from Viking Tactics, from Vtac. They call this the Scuffle Belt. Has a very unique little buckle, and these are really fun because actually the way this works is you double that nylon belt through this part of the buckle. This actually pulls through, okay? And then you can also very quickly remove this just by you pull this out slightly, you turn it, and then it's gonna slip through that D ring, okay? And there's the other end. So, but this one is not reinforced. It's very flexible. This would be something more for kind of casual wear. It may work with some smaller guns and smaller holsters and stuff, but a very, very simple belt from Viking Tactics, the Scuffle Belt.
Riley, talk a little bit about buckles, specifically with appendix carry, and what you might look for, or how you might wear the belt.
Before I get to that, let me finish up kind of the discussion on adjustability, okay? Because we were kind of going down that path, and then we got distracted a little bit. So whether it's this style of belt, whether it's the Cobra Belt, whether it's this next belt, or even this one from 511 with these simple buckles like this, all of these are basically infinitely adjustable. The one exception being the next belt having these ratchets. They're every 1/4 inch, but that's almost as good as infinite adjustability, right? So I love having that infinite adjustability because if you change your holster, if you change your gun, if you change your pants, if your weight changes slightly, whatever it is, you ate too much over the holidays, having an infinitely adjustable belt is extremely valuable as a concealed carrier. So what I really like in a belt and look for in a belt is these days is something that has that kind of infinite adjustability where it can be 35.79 inches, because you can dial it in. So when I'm putting on my guns in the morning, in my holster and everything, I'll kind of get the belt to where it's somewhat snug. Okay, so if this was me, I'd get it kind of somewhat snug. I'd put my gun and holster in place, and then I'd come back and I would pull this until it feels about right, till it feels comfortable. And so that infinite adjustability works really nicely. You can get things close, get the gun and the holster situated, and then dial it in. And if it's a little bit too tight, you can let out a little bit. So infinite adjustability in a belt is huge. Now let's talk about what to do with buckles. You'll see here, even on this Cobra Belt, I have my buckle placed a little bit off center line. Okay, it's just slightly to the left in this case. I'm carrying appendix. I'm carrying about 1 o'clock, maybe one. It's basically 1 o'clock. Okay, the end of my holster is basically just above the crease of my leg if I pick up my leg. Okay, so you can see I can do that and the gun doesn't move, right? So that gives you a sense of kind of how and where I'm carrying in the appendix position. So I've got my buckle slightly off center. Why? I'm sure some of you know, but that is so that if I had this, well, the alternative would be if I had the buckle kind of in the center or even slightly over top of the holster and the gun, then what you're going to see when I'm concealing is this bulge from the buckle. So a lot of times appendix carriers, you'll see us slide things over to the side. I've even had some belts where I've put the buckle in between the first loop and the second loop on my pants. Yeah, here's a good example. So Jacob's got this one set up like that.
Yeah, so here's center, right? Gun. And then over here is where I have the buckle.
Yep. So by doing that, you can have less of a bulge from the actual buckle of the belt because it's laying over top of your gun and holster. So that's a really good kind of like little bit of a pro tip for you appendix carriers especially. It's not going to be an issue when you carry 4 o'clock, right? Or OWB at 3 o'clock. So yeah, having the belt offset, really, really, really good tip. Let's see. So I did want to talk a little bit about sizing of belts. Jacob and I actually just this morning, we were playing around with this a little bit. And let's see, I'm going to actually go ahead and flip the camera around. So what you'll see here is I got several of these leather belts. It's a little bit more important on leather belts because you are so much more limited in the adjustability. So what we have here, this is a 38. This is a 36. This is a 38. And this is like a 48. It's kind of a big one here. So we were just playing around with different sizing. So the way you would measure a belt is you basically place the tape measure at the end of the buckle. And then we can go down here and we'll see that in the case of this 36-inch belt, it's actually like 43 inches. This one here being 38 is closer to 44, 45. Same with this one here. And this guy that's a 48 is actually like 55. That's really, really long. So what you're going to see is that this one being a 36 is basically sized so that 36 is right in that kind of that second hole from the tightest hole. The 38 here, very similar concept. Okay, this guy up here is a 48, and we'll see that the 48-inch mark lines right up at that third hole from the inside hole. So when you are choosing a belt, especially a leather belt with holes and a buckle, you need to be aware of how sizing generally works. I think most of these companies that sell these types of belts use a similar pattern to where if you say you need a 36-inch belt, it's going to be sized so that 36 inches is somewhere kind of in the middle of those holes. But what you may not realize, and this was something that Jacob and I were just talking about, is I'm wearing a size 36 pant, which is actually a little bit big for me because I'm kind of an oddball. I'm a little too big for 34s, but I'm not quite a 36. I'm like a 35. So I buy a 36-inch pant, which works great if I'm putting a holster inside. It's about the right tension, generally speaking. But I don't buy a 36 or 38-inch belt. It's not going to be big enough. I actually have to buy more like a 40. And that gets me kind of in that. So generally, you need to check the website of the company you're ordering a leather belt like this from. But you need to, and actually in case of all belts, you should look at their sizing instructions very carefully. And because some of them will say, take your pant size, add 2 or even 4 inches. Some will actually say take a tape, you know, a measuring tape, not this kind of construction type tape, generally like a sewer's,
It's a
fabric measuring tape, and throw that around your waist and actually measure it. Because what you'll find is you wear a 36 pant, but your actual it's not, like, sizes are not actually true to the dimensions that we think they are. So if you throw that measuring tape around your waist, you might find you're actually a 38 or a 40 when you think you're a 36. So if you order belts based on your pant size, you're almost every time going to end up with them coming too small, has been my experience. Okay? So hopefully that helps you as far as sizing and all that goes. Let's see here. Chet, thank you. Appreciate the kind words, brother. Let's see. I saw someone say John, you said you wish you'd heard the infinite adjustability talk a month ago. You get it now. Yeah, I had to learn the same way, brother.
People want to know where they can get some of these, so if you can talk about different. We've been putting links in the chat, but any other comments?
Yep. I mentioned as far as on the 511 gear, you can go to 511 Tactical, 511tactical.com, or if you have a 511 Tactical store in your area somewhere, we've got one here in the Denver area, so really easy to go down there and pick one up. And they're opening stores all over the place. 511, good stuff. You can get those directly from 511. We don't stock those. We stock almost everything else that we have here, almost. There's definitely some exceptions. We have the Viking Tactics belt, the Cobra. Okay, that's this guy again with the Cobra buckle, and also the Scuffle Belt. We stock these. Now, if you order those on our site, you might see right now there's so many different sizes, right? So you might see that some sizes are out of stock. And I suspect doing a video like this, there's going to be a number of you that go out and buy some of these belts, and they might go out of stock very quickly. Just know we have an order already in place for new belts. We're replenishing our stock from Viking Tactics. So you can back order those. It might be an extra week or 2 or 3, okay, but we'll get those to you as quickly as we can, all right? They're good belts. I really like the Viking Tactics belts. Let's see, Urban Carry, you can get directly from Urban Carry. It's a decent belt. These Brave Response belts, we now have those available for sale, all right? So Brave Response belts, those are available on the concealedcarry.com website. CrossBreed holsters, you can pick these up also on our website, concealedcarry.com, and so those are ready to go. And then, as I mentioned, we got a closeout going now on the casual belts, the traveler's belts, or the airport belt, I guess it's actually called, and the dress belts. Okay, so those are almost everything that I've talked about today is available on our site. The Graith belt, you'll have to go to GraithUSA.com. Really, 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 I like that belt a lot. Jacob has also been very impressed. And I didn't even talk about this one. This is another option from Wilderness Tactical. So they call this the instructor's belt, I think.
Yeah, and it looks a little worn because I've worn that belt for like 2.5 years.
This is like Jacob's favorite belt forever. And so this is a very popular style amongst many gun owners. Pretty hefty duty, metal buckle there, and you're going to slip that through like so and double it back, and then it's got Velcro to secure the other end back here like so. Really, really, solid belt. Good choice. And this one, what's cool about Wilderness Tactical is they have options for hidden zipper pockets on the inside of the belt. So that's one of the reasons why Jacob really likes this belt is he can have a little stash of cash.
It's an option when you order the belt, so you can choose any belt and say I want to add the money pouch.
Right. Yeah. So it's really cool if you want to have a handcuff key, some extra cash, emergency cash, whatever. Maybe some identification stuff. If it's a copy of it, folded up really small, that sort of thing.
Little razor blade.
Hey, don't be, that's like thug stuff there. So.
Someone did ask, what about a Kydex Core? Do you have feelings about the Kydex Core versus the nylon polymer or just pure leather or anything like that?
My feelings on that, I don't really have much of an opinion. I think so. Whatever's going to last, right? So, and I've not seen really any belt that I've come across yet that didn't really last a good while. As far as on these reinforced gun belts. So as long as the material that's being used in that reinforcement lasts, it's not going to like crack or break on the inside. Like that's probably what I would say. And I haven't seen anything that's an issue that's come across my desk just yet.
I've heard rumors, or I've heard people on forums and stuff say that the Kydex core belts, they'll crack or they see issues and things like that. But I don't know how rumorish that is.
That's the first thing that came to my mind is you said Kydex Core belts, because Kydex is very rigid material. So if it's actually Kydex, chances are over time that's going to end up cracking, because it is not really a material that's meant to. I mean, you think about your Kydex holsters. You don't want your Kydex holsters bending, right? And then here's another factor. When you have Kydex, which is a thermo, molded product, so it uses heat to mold the product. If you're wearing that on your person, I mean, generally our holsters do a fine job, but when you add the additional heat of your body combined with flexing that belt, there's a greater possibility of maybe it breaking down and cracking over time. So
don't worry, Dean. I won't put any crazy Colorado wacky tobacco in my belt.
Not an issue here.
Tristan asks, what does the zip do for comfort? I'm not sure.
Zip? Are you referring to the zipper inside the belt?
Yeah. So, because that's the only belts I wear have those zippers. Sometimes they'll come with the actual zipper pull, and I break those pulls off, so that I'm just left with what you see there. It doesn't bother me, especially if I put it in the right place. There might be if the zipper's in a certain place on my waistline, it might dig a little bit. But if I just adjust it to the right spot, maybe right in front of or behind the gun, where there's a little bit of gap where the belt's not directly against the body, then it's never been a real big deal to me.
Yep.
Yeah. Someone did ask about size of belts. How do I know how should it fit? Should it be perfectly the same size as my clip? Or
actually, that's something I definitely think is important to address. I appreciate you asking to remind me on that.
That was a good comment there from from Jared Wayne Holmes.
Yeah. So let me use as an example here. I have a holster from Stealth Gear. Okay, and the reason I'm going to use this as an example is because it has just a single clip. See that clip right there? And this is 1.5 inches, maybe it's 1.75 inches. Sometimes these are kind of in between sizes a little bit. Looks like, it would be really tight, but this 1.75 inch belt would barely clip. In fact, you would have a hard time getting the lip of this over top of that belt. So this is really sized for an 1.5 inch wide belt, based on what I'm seeing here. Okay, so the question about how important is it that the belt is sized according to the clips that are used? It's very important, especially in the case where it's a single clip holster like this one is. So think about it. If I take, let me use as an example, I'll use the airport belt as an example, okay? Because this thing is really narrow, it's 1.25 inches. Get off there. Okay, so if we slip that through there, look how much play is on that clip. Right, so that means my gun and my holster can move 20 to 25 degrees just because it doesn't sit tightly on that belt, okay? So if we fill that void, if we fill that space in the clip all the way, I'm using this is the next belt that I have here. It's also not really ideally sized there. It allows a good amount of play, all right? But if I go up to this CrossBreed belt would be a good example. Not only is it wider, but it's a little bit thicker, a little bit less play in the belt there. All right? So obviously there's going to be times where you just can't get it perfect to get that whole space filled. And obviously because of the way this clip has been designed with that return, which is not a bad thing, in fact it's a good thing, you got to be able to clear that over top of the belt and allow that clip to come down around the belt. So you can't have a belt that's totally tight in that space, which is why I like other options out there. This belt or holster that I've got on today is using loops, and the loops, you actually can see I've adjusted this loop over here. This back piece is a little bit taller. I could cut that off, but I haven't yet. The loops are a lot more flexible as far as being able to size the loop for the belt, because they have a couple of different adjustment points in the back of the loop. You can make it sized for the belt specifically. And also loops, I think, are generally a little bit more forgiving. Another little tip, single clip holsters, or excuse me, I'll say a 2-clip holster or 2-loop holster is almost always superior to a single clip or single loop holster as far as security on the belt. Staying in place, not moving around a whole lot. I'll tell you, if your gun and holster moves in your waistband on your belt, you're going to spend a chunk of your day adjusting that all the time because you'll feel it move. It'll be uncomfortable. Sometimes it'll move and cause comfort issues. Sometimes it'll move and cause printing issues. And then, of course, by having to adjust things throughout the day, you run the risk that somebody sees you making that adjustment if you're out in a public place. So that's a consideration as well. So I do not like my equipment to move. That's why it's important to me to have a good, solid gun belt that fits the holster very well in those loops or clips. And then I'm also using, ideally, I prefer a 2-clip system because that's even more secure. This Glock 17 in this vertically oriented appendix holster does not move. It doesn't budge an inch all day long. So it's exactly where I want it. When I put it on in the morning, it stays there. It's really important to me. So yeah, that's my thoughts on clips and loops and how it fits the belt. Let's see. Dean says, outstanding information, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you, Dean, for watching, and I'm glad this is helpful for you. I'm kind of wondering, Jacob, is there anything that we missed? Any other questions from anybody?
Hey, if you guys missed Shop Talk last week, we talked about ulti clips, talking about clips and things like that. You might go watch last week's Shop Talk. You can find all the episodes of Shop Talk are going to be at www.concealedcarry.com/Shop Talk. All one word, SHOPTALK.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing to check out as well.
I'm curious about this comment from Roxanne. Belts make a difference, however, doesn't help us concealed carry folks. Can't hide all that.
The clips.
Belts make it. Can't.
If you see a clip over the top of your belt.
Oh. So like if you were wearing inside waistband or something, and you've got a shirt or something tucked in over top of the gun, but behind the clips. Is that what you're referring to, Roxanne? If you could offer some clarification there, I'll try to adjust your question as much as possible. But what Jacob was just saying, if that is indeed what you're talking about, there are different options available for being able to hide clips and things, on the belt. So obviously, I'm not really that concerned about trying to, carry this type of gun inside waistband with it tucked. Sounds like the mailman is here. That's cool. But some options. We talked last week on Shop Talk about UltiClip. An UltiClip is an option that would allow you to clip it to the belt behind, or to the pants behind the belt. And so that would be maybe an option if you're concerned about being able to hide clips and things from a holster, using something like an UltiClip. All right. Practical gun defense. I use a leather OWB holster on a leather belt and hear the leather on leather noise. This is a common complaint actually about leather holsters especially, and or leather belts. Over time, where's my leather holster? Oh, here's the 1791. This actually has loops on the back here. Hey guys, we got deliveries from UPS. Woohoo! Means there's some good stuff in there. So if you have a leather holster on a leather belt especially, over time as things kind of move around a little bit, it will kind of polish those surfaces, and as that surface gets really polished and worn, it can start causing creaking and squeaking and other kind of noises. So there are leather conditioning products that you would want to look into that help address that. By using that leather conditioner, you can actually help eliminate some of those leather on leather noises. Greg asks, is the core that you showed a steel core?
We don't have a core.
Well, I think he's referring to the next belt, which is designed very similarly to the products from Core. It is not a steel core. I don't know what is in this one in particular. I don't even know if there's, not even 100% certain there's something in there. I just know that it's generally a fairly stiff belt. It could just be it's leather sewn onto this nylon backing, and that looking at the weave of that nylon, it's quite a stiff product. So
we're hitting the hour.
Tristram says saddle soap. Yeah, that's there you go. And olive oil, all possibilities. Has it really been an hour?
It's 12:58, bro.
Wow. Dang, it didn't feel like it's been that long. Thanks, guys, for watching. So I know it's been posted in the comments, but hopefully this is helpful. Go to concealedcarry.com, and on most of the products you've seen here today, for all this week, right?
Yep.
All of this week, use the coupon code BELT15 and save 15% off of any belts on our site all this week, okay? That'll expire at the end of, what, Sunday? Okay, yeah. So all through basically this is Monday, so all through Sunday you can use the coupon code BELT15, save 15%. Don't forget we have a number of these concealedcarry.com brand leather belts, the airplane or airport,
the casual,
and the dress. They're already marked down, and that 15% coupon code is valid on those as well.
Yeah, if we happen to have one in your size, you're going to have a hard time getting a nicer belt at that price. But they are discontinued. When they're gone, they're gone.
Yep. So there you go. Thanks for watching this edition of Shop Talk. Hopefully talking about everything belts helpful for you. Come back next week, next Monday at 12 noon Mountain Time for another edition of Shop Talk. We'll have something else cool and hopefully exciting. So,
to be determined.
A couple other quick things. Podcast this week. We've got some good news stories coming up tomorrow on tomorrow's edition of the podcast. And we also are announcing our first ever weekly giveaway winner tomorrow on the show. So if you haven't signed up for that, now would be a last chance. Go to concealedcarry.com/podcast prize and make sure you're signed up for the giveaway. We'll announce the winner tomorrow. Thursday, we have an interview with Adam Kraut from the Gun Collective. He's an attorney, a really smart dude. He's also running for the third or fourth time to get onto the NRA Board of Directors. It should be a really interesting conversation with Adam Kraut. He can talk to us about all kinds of things, legal issues, regarding like bump stocks and triggers and, SBRs and all that kind of stuff. And he can also talk about NRA issues. He can also talk about stuff going on at Gun Collective. So really interesting guest. We're looking forward to talking with Adam. We'll also announce a Facebook Live winner, and this week that's going to be the winner will win a Traveler's Guide, 2019 Traveler's Guide. So really, really appropriate, I think, considering the guest is an attorney. It's not his book, but anyway. So and then I think
that's what to expect for this week.
That's it.
Yeah.
There you go. Ciao. Take it easy.